It can be a strange world out there. And every delicious mystery might just have a nugget of truth. This is Cryptid Nuggets.
Oh wow, Mitch, keep that drink up. Hello and welcome to another episode of Cryptid Nuggets. I am John Stenning, and drinking out of a chalice is my co-host, Mitch DeAngelis. Hi, Mitch.
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. You know, I've always been in life a big soda drinker, right? And I mean, don't get me wrong, I still drink quite a bit of soda. But I'm trying, now that I turned the big 3-0, you know, I'm trying to take a little bit better care of myself. So,
wow, that was your 30. You're 30?
Dude, I know, right? I'm ready to be taken out into the backyard and like sent to the farm.
You seem perpetually 10 years younger than me, so that's what I thought you were a 25-year-old man.
Well, I have been told by other people that I have a youthful vigor to me.
Yeah, you have very youthful vigor. You're drinking, how many slices of lemon? Is that one full
This is one
lemon?
whole
like
lemon.
8? Is it like 8 different slices? Did you slice it into 8 pieces?
I sliced it into 8 pieces. You know, I usually have it, then quarter it, then I have those quarters. So that's like 8 pieces.
Yeah, there's a little lesson in geometry for you folks out there. A sphere, when cut equally 4 times, makes 8 wedges. Interesting. Now, do you squeeze the lemon?
Oh, yes, I
squeeze the lemon.
So I squeeze the lemon.
Put the rest in.
So I squeeze the lemon into the water, and then I throw in the slices, right? And the thing I love about this is that as you work it down, right, you can kind of just keep adding more water to it, you know, in this quasi-science
experiment
we're doing.
You just discovered water.
Yeah, and the water flavors itself.
No, the lemons flavor the water, but...
well, what I mean is, like, the water in the glass continues to flavor itself. Yeah. You know, it's like an endless tap.
Are you filling this cup with bottles of water?
Yeah.
You don't use tap water? Are you anti-tap water?
I don't use tap water in this new house because we have well water, and the filter's not that great. So, you know, it's full of like iron and crap like that. So,
I have well water. I have a really good filter because there's a lot of radon where I live.
Oh, yikes!
That's terrible. That's a radioactive substance.
That's not good for you at all.
And we have a very high-tech UV filter like built into the basement. And so even though I do have a pitcher in the fridge, you know, it's nice to be able to know that, you know, even the water that you shower with isn't killing you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, well, welcome to the world of water. And welcome to another podcast. If this is your first time listening or your second time listening, or maybe you're a super fan and you've listened to every episode. But if you're somehow familiar with the show, we are Cryptid Nuggets. That's right. And we are a Beastie Boys paranormal presentation. And I like to consider myself an open-minded individual. You know, maybe Mitch thinks I'm a little bit too open-minded sometimes. But, you know, I also think that Mitch has, you know, a tale or two up his sleeves that are, even for me, a bit too hard to believe. Is that what you would say, Mitch?
I would definitely agree.
And you're gonna, and I believe that I'm sorry to cut you off, but I believe we're on some sort of dinosaur tangent today. And I'm a big fan of dinosaurs.
I was about to ask.
Jurassic Park is one of my favorite movies. I have a Jurassic Park tattoo. I'm looking at some dinosaur Lego just across the way. I have prehistoric shark teeth. I'm very much into
very cool.
That type of stuff. Not in any sort of scientific way. Never studied it. Never really looked into it. You know, but I like the lore of dinosaur.
Yes.
Even though they're real.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting.
I believe that they're real. I believe dinosaurs, at least millions of years ago, were real. We'll see what kind of hubbub you get up to today.
Yeah, well, so first of all, on the notion of just dinosaurs themselves, right? like many a young child, especially a young boy, what had a dinosaur phase where I had, dinosaur figures coming out of every nook and cranny, right?
Of your body?
No, no, well, not to your knowledge, but but just like in bins of toys in my room and stuff like that. When I was still young, like in the third or fourth grade or whatever, was when Animal Planet, I think, did their first like Walking with Dinosaurs documentary with like
Okay.
the CG dinosaurs, right? And like
Yeah.
to me, that was like the coolest thing ever because I grew up watching like nature documentaries like that on like Animal Planet and National Geographic and all that kind of stuff. And then to see them basically make that about animals that are not alive today, and like, sure, looking back on it now, the CG's not that good, but like, dude, at the time, that was mind blowing.
Well, that being said, have you watched Prehistoric Planet?
I have watched Prehistoric Planet. It's very good.
Much more modern. Right?
Yes, much more modern.
And the
take.
CG is pretty good.
Oh yeah.
Also, dinosaurs fornicating. So if you're horny and you're into that sort of thing, there's dinosaurs getting into it, doing the nasty on this friggin' show.
Yeah.
Someone CG dinosaurs doing it, and that's out of control. But that's where we're at in today's society. Prehistoric Planet's a lot of fun. Yeah, I sort of am like, okay, enough is enough. You're making like you know what I mean? You're making just like there's so many shows like that. I think is that a Disney production, Prehistoric Planet? Or
I believe so.
Planet as well.
I believe it's a Disney
production. I'm pretty sure I've seen it on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
But yeah, those dinosaurs, prehistoric dinosaurs, I'm buying it. Something tells me the dinosaurs that you're about to tell me about are not prehistoric, but are somehow contemporary with our lives here in the 21st century. Am I correct to assume that? I have done no Googling. I can just that's just my initial off the bat.
I would say that yes, but like with most of these stories that I tend to spin you, there are some curveballs there that raise some questions about whether it's true or not, and also if it is true, what it could imply, right? So let's just talk general dinosaurs. What's your favorite dinosaur? Do you have one?
No,
I
don't have one. Nope.
Oh.
I'm not a child. I don't have a favorite dinosaur.
Well, you never know.
I wanted to say a raptor because that is like what my tattoo is, but I don't think so. I also think that's a very played out answer.
Yeah.
I want to say Dilophosaurus because it kills Wayne Knight in Jurassic Park. But do I really have a favorite? I really like the one with the helmet.
Yeah.
I like the one with the mace for a tail.
Oh, Ankylosaurus. Yep.
Ankylosaurus. Yeah, I like Stegosaurus. I love Triceratops. But no, I don't have a favorite because once again, I am not a child. I'm a 35-year-old man, and I have not figured out what is my favorite gigantic prehistoric lizard. I haven't spent a good amount of time thinking about that. Do you have a favorite dinosaur, my newly 30-year-old friend?
Well, see, now that I'm at the ripe old age of 30, I'm not allowed to have one anymore, based on what we just heard. But hey. I will say that I was always a fan of like the big carnivore dinosaurs, right?
Okay, cool.
Like Tyrannosaurus, Ceratosaurus, Allosaurus, like all of those, right? Spinosaurus. Dude, like when Spinosaurus shows, Jurassic Park 3 is not a good movie, but when Spinosaurus first shows up and like rips the T-Rex to shreds, it's like amazing. Yeah. It's wild.
Yeah. I like Carnotaurus a lot too. That's a fun one, very fierce,
Oh yeah.
T-Rex, obviously, T-Rex has a lot of limelight on it, especially because of the first Jurassic Park.
Yes.
And there are a lot of other sort of big, ferocious, carnivorous, bipedal dinosaurs that were like awesome,
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So, the interesting thing to me about dinosaurs is like dinosaurs are very old creatures, right? Like they existed millions and hundreds of millions of years ago at the very least, right? But as like a concept in zoology, dinosaurs are a relatively new thing, in the grand scheme of human history, right? Like,
Right.
ancient people found fossils and stuff, right? And they kind of understood to a degree what they were looking at. Like, when I was doing my research for this, I found out that there was an ancient Greek philosopher named Xenophon, and he was able to figure out that by fossils of shellfish that there was a point where a lot of the Earth was actually underwater, which we know now is true. But they were able to figure out stuff like that back.
Yeah, they were idiots.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're smarter now, and so like, I guess there was probably a point where like we knew about the animals that were around.
Exactly.
But we didn't really have the science to study the animals that are no longer around, right? Like,
exactly, right? Yeah. So like, but as you get more into like the 18th century, the 1700s, the 1800s, that's when, scientists really for the first time start to kind of understand what these fossils really are. Like, these are animals that lived a very long time ago. So starting in the 1800s, special attention starts to get given to reptilian-like fossils that don't match any known living animals, right? Discoveries of creatures such as like the Mosasaurus, the pterodactyl, the megalosaurus, iguanodon.
Pterodactyl's a great one.
Yes.
Oh, iguanodon, great one. A lot of great dinosaurs. Yeah,
they're a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, they're fun.
So like all these discoveries are being made in like the late 1700s, all the way into like the mid 1800s. And eventually, an English biologist, his name's Richard Owen, he coins the new taxonomic order called Dinosauria to encompass all of these creatures that we're discovering these fossils of and putting together. And, by the late 1800s and early 1900s, dinosaurs are taking the world by storm. Just like how there's all the gold rushes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just like how there was all sorts of gold rushes in California and the Yukon, there's now also like fossil rushes between teams of paleontologists.
People are deciding like, oh, we can dig and find things, right? Like,
exactly, right? But they're like also like racing each other to try to make the discovery first, and like they're even having like fossil wars where they're like sabotaging each other's, dig sites and all that.
Classic. Yeah,
right?
That sounds like fun.
And, during this time, dinosaurs start to become like a household name and a household topic. They're appearing in newspapers and science books, magazines, all sorts of different publications. There's also, not only nonfiction stuff, but like fiction writers start using dinosaurs. Like famous author Arthur Conan Doyle writes The Lost World, which is about, a team of scientists who go to...
He wrote that book?
Yeah, he wrote that book,
like,
right?
At the same time he was doing Sherlock Holmes?
Right around the same time, yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Right, and like it's about a team of scientists that go to this like unknown location and they discover living dinosaurs. Jules Verne's writes Journey to the Center of the Earth, which is much the same thing where they go and find an underground ocean full of dinosaurs. Right, movies and film is starting to happen in the early 1900s. And famous filmmakers like D.W. Griffith are using stop motion to bring dinosaurs to the silver screen. And later on,
or all those stop motion stuff is like all classic dinosaur shit.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think that's his name, right? Harryhausen, Harry von Hausen.
Yep, the guy who did like all the Sinbad movies and stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. Exactly, right? And famously in the movie King Kong fights a dinosaur in the 1930s, right? So
very much a part of the pop culture, very much like a big pop culture thing.
Yes, it explodes all over the place. So stories of, mankind living alongside dinosaurs kind of starts because originally they thought like, oh, maybe these creatures lived alongside us millions and millions of years ago. Now we know that's not really true. There was no Flintstones scenario of like cavemen living alongside dinosaurs, right?
Right.
And same thing with stories of people encountering dinosaurs in modern times. Now, however, in 1908, I'm going to tell you a rather interesting story. In 1908, there's a story that's published by a man named George Dupoy, and it's entitled The Monster of Partridge Creek. And it sort of challenges this notion.
Sounds like this fucking... This is why do they always have the lamest... The Monster of Partridge Creek?
The Monster of Partridge
1908,
Creek. It's
Is
1908.
this guy French? Is he Canadian?
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you all about him. So first of all, George Marie Dupoy is his full name. And he is actually quite a famous individual for his contributions to medical science. He was a French physician. He's a doctor. His most famous work is entitled The Stretcher Bearer. And what it is, it's a nonfiction book that was written in 1915 that's all about how to bandage wounds and how to treat battlefield injuries and stuff like that. It saw a lot of use during World War I, probably saved a lot of countless lives. But not only was he a doctor, he was something of a worldly adventurer and a journalist. He would travel all across the United States and Europe.
This guy fucking Indiana Jones?
Basically, in a sense, yes, right? He basically went wherever you could imagine throughout the continental United States during the time. He was going to the gold rushes in California and writing about them. He was going to the gold rushes in Yukon and writing about them. He was going down south and writing about all the things that are happening down south near the border. He would write about everything, the lives of settlers, the lives of indigenous natives, things about the local fauna, field guides. He was quite prolific. He would write for a lot of magazines. He published a lot of books. And by all accounts, he was a well-respected, accomplished, and worldly individual amongst all his peers in all these different fields, right? So in 1908, he writes...
I love it when you say that. I love it when you say shit like that because this guy's about to make the most outrageous claim.
Wait till we get started. So in 1908, he contributed a curious article to the French magazine. Now, my French is not very good, but I'm going to attempt it. The French magazine...
Oh, God, this French with a North Providence accent.
Je sais tout. I think I'm relatively close. So the French magazine Je sais tout, and it also gets published in the Strand magazine, which is like its English counterpart. So those magazines would include both like fiction sections and non-fiction sections. Now, Dupoy's article, the Monster of Partridge Creek, is published specifically in the non-fiction section.
Non-fiction.
Non-fiction, okay. As in it's true, right?
And you know what? You know what I always hate? Sorry, quick tangent.
Yeah.
Why don't they just call that fact?
Yeah.
Why is it non-fiction? It's just factual. Non-fiction is like a weird go around it's based on reality, but maybe we told a couple of fibs. It's not but no, non-fiction means it's real, right?
Yes.
It's real.
Yeah,
it's based on fact.
It's a weird quandary really about grammar and the way it works. It's probably
fiction and factual books. I'm retconning it. It's factual.
Yeah, no, I would agree. So
fiction. Oh.
So his non-fiction article in this magazine, he includes a foreword by himself that he insists that what he's reporting on were events as they were reported to him by someone he knew, and then events he personally was there for and witnessed. So his story begins with him. He's relaxing at a riverside cabin at the Stewart River in Yukon near a place named McQuestion's Post. And this is a common locale for him. He's been there several times. He traveled to the region to report on the gold rush that was going on there at the time. And he's staying at the cabin of one of his friends who's a Jesuit minister, whose name is Father Lavignou. And, he's just relaxing on the porch, and taking in the scenery. And to his surprise, he sees a canoe coming from across the river that's carrying a friend of his. He's a banker from San Francisco who became a prospector. His name is James Lewis Butler. And Butler has with him two native guides. And they come across the river because, he heard that Dupoy was in the area and he wanted to come visit him and tell him all about what's been going on. So Dupoy's expecting Butler to tell him about, prospecting for gold and stuff like that. But what Butler ends up telling Dupoy is something absolutely wild. So according to Butler, as Dupoy wrote it down, 2 days earlier, Butler's making his way overland to the Stewart River. And he stops to rest at a cabin of a man that's listed in the story as being named Grant. No last name is given for him. Now, Grant invites Butler to accompany him and two men from the Clayoquot tribe on a moose hunt. Now, Butler decides to go on the moose hunt, and the next day they all, make their way along Partridge Creek, which is near Stewart River, to a mineral lick where moose and deer would come and, to taste the salt and stuff like that. So they get to the area, and they're looking around, and there's these 3 prime specimens of moose just right there. They're just chilling right out in the open. They're getting their rifles, they're lining up their shots, they're trying not to spook or scare the animals. Everything seems like it's going according to plan. But then before any of them could fire a single shot, one of the moose lets out this loud, shrill bellow of the kind of sound it makes to alert others of a predator. And then they all make a rush for the woodline. So they're curious because they feel like they didn't startle the mooses, right? Or the moose. They don't feel like the moose saw them.
Meese. I think it's meese.
Is it meese?
Yeah, plural is meese. Yeah.
Yeah, so they didn't startle the meese, Yeah, so they go to investigate the muddy banks where the moose were startled. And what they found astonished them. And now this is the quote directly as Dupoy wrote it down, as related to him by Butler. So Butler said to him, "We decided to approach the spot where the animals had taken fright so suddenly. Arriving at the Moose Lick, a spot about 60 feet long and 15 feet wide, we saw in the mud, and almost on a level with the water of the Mick, the fresh imprint of the body of a monstrous animal. Its belly had made an impression in the slime more than 2 feet deep, 30 feet long, and 12 feet wide. 4 gigantic paws, also deeply impressed, had left at each end of the main imprint, and a little to the side, footprints 5 feet long by 2.5 feet wide, the claws being more than a foot long, the sharp points of which had buried themselves deeply in the mud. There was also the print, apparently, of a heavy tail, 10 feet long and 16 inches wide at the point." So
At the point?
At the point. So that's big.
This is Godzilla.
That's massive. It's a
10-foot tail is huge. Yeah.
Yeah. So, judging by the description of this massive imprint, something very big, if we're to believe Butler on his account, sharp claws, right, big long tail, laying down on its belly, gut up at some point, dragging its tail along the ground, wading through super thick mud, leaving these super deep impressions. Then Butler continues, "We followed the tracks of the monster in the valley for 5 or 6 miles. And then at the ravine of Partridge Creek, a place which the miners call a gulch, they ceased suddenly as if by enchantment," indicating that the tracks just completely stopped. Maybe it went down the rocky gulch and stopped leaving tracks, or who knows what happened. So Butler's told this story to Dupoy, and Dupoy is absolutely fascinated because this sounds like either this is the funniest practical joke of all time, or this is the scientific discovery of the century. So, enchanted by, his little tale, he goes with Butler to nearby McQuestion Post, which is like a small little trading post community. There's, some Canadian Mounties there. There's a Jesuit missionary. There's members of this indigenous tribe called the Clayoquot tribe. And, they put together a posse of about 8 guys. It includes, all the people I just listed. There's a miner whose name is Tom Lamore, who's working a claim. He joins. 5 hunters from the indigenous tribe join them. And they decide to go on a little hunting excursion the next day to see if they can find whatever made these massive tracks. So, enchanted and bewildered, they set out across the river, and they search all day. They're moving across rough, boggy ground to the forest along the river's edge in the deep mud, going through mountains. They're out there for quite a while. They're looking for any signs. They aren't able to find any signs, and they make their camp for the evening. And they decide to camp on the crest of a hill that's overlooking the titular Partridge Creek. Now, preparing their evening meal, they get alerted by the sound of big, heavy, falling rocks and stones are falling into the nearby ravine. And then this massive roar erupts, bellowing across the entire canyon that they're in. You know, it like shakes them, it's so loud. So the 9 men, they rush to the cliff's edge to witness a large, seemingly reptilian beast that resembled a bipedal dinosaur, like an Allosaurus or a Ceratosaurus, trying and repeatedly failing to scale the steep slope at the opposite end of the creek. So, you know, there's like a gorge, and they're on one end, they're watching it try to scale this other end. And it was a dark brownish black in color. Its entire body was not covered in the stereotypical scales of a dinosaur, but actually in the hide of what appeared to be thick bristles like that of a wild boar. On the tip of its snout was a horn-like protrusion, not dissimilar to a rhinoceros or the horn-like crest that a Ceratosaurus was thought to have. In fact, that's the dinosaur that they thought they were witnessing. And now you might also be familiar, you mentioned earlier, Carnotaurus, right, which has the, the famous villain from the Disney animated film Dinosaur. For those that don't know, he has those, like, horns that come out of, like, the brow ridge. He seemed to have bony protrusions.
Like Satan.
Yeah, exactly, right? Basically like the devil incarnate.
Yeah, exactly.
So this creature seemed to have bony protrusions coming out of its head like that, too. It was, for all intents and purposes, almost like the stereotypical carnivorous theropod dinosaur, though instead of being covered in, scales or leathery skin, which was what, was believed dinosaurs had at the time, it was covered in, like, a thick coat of fur or some other kind of fluff. Now,
I mean, which would make sense if you know, like, the evolutionary advances of those big beasts, right? Like,
yeah, it's an interesting thing.
Yeah,
it's an interesting thing, and there's some things about the dinosaur in this story that it's like, at the time it's written, it doesn't make sense to what they know, but now it's like, wait a minute. But we're gonna get into that a little later.
Saber-toothed tiger still a dinosaur?
Not particularly, no. However,
you know what I mean? No, because
yeah.
it's like it's more mammalian than it is reptilian.
Yes.
And yeah, right. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No. So they watch this thing for 10 minutes. They observe it, right? And they're like scared out of their wits. They're all armed, but none of them is gonna like dare try to take a shot at this beast. They're hoping this thing just doesn't notice them.
Doesn't notice.
Yeah.
Right.
So Dupoy's watching this thing, and he estimates it to be roughly 50 feet from the tip of its nose to the end of its tail. And he said it was probably about 18 feet high at the peak of its spine. Eventually, after 10 minutes, the creature kind of realized that it's not going to make it up the slope this way after it keeps trying to climb up and fail, and all these heavy rocks are falling down. So it stops, and it turns around, and it goes off into the nearby valley that leaves Partridge Creek, going into, the nearby woodline. And it moves very quickly, too. Like, unnervingly quickly. It's just like bolts in that direction. So needless to say, after seeing that, they're like, we can't stay here. That's, that's incredibly dangerous. So they return to McQuestion Post. And when they return to Dupoy and Butler, they travel hastily to Dawson City, which is just north of where McQuestion Post is. And they go to the commissioner of the city, and they tell him that they have to assemble a posse of 50 armed men and several pack animals to set out...
Just to kill this thing?
To set out and destroy the monster they had witnessed.
What a man, just like all these fucking 100-year-ago white guys that are just like, you know what? We're just going to fucking kill anything that's bigger than us. It's not doing shit. It didn't even notice you. It's obviously stupid as hell if it took 10 minutes for it to climb up the cliff. Just let it live in the middle of nowhere. Fuck.
So, naturally, they expected to be, like, hailed as, heroes. But
of course,
the entire city, they became like the butt of many jokes for the entire city.
Right, because the commissioner of the city isn't buying it.
No, the commissioner,
right?
not for a second, right? In fact, according to Dupoy, one of the journals in the city even wrote like a very satirical article about him that called him.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that called him a rival of Poe, like Edgar Allan Poe, meaning that like he was such a great fictitious storyteller. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Right.
So, but at the same time, he said it was very flattering. So they must have.
Yeah, Edgar Allan Poe's a fucking legend.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, this guy wishes he was Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah,
truth or not, what the hell?
So without anything to do about, without any leads or way to do anything, Dupoy just, they give up their chase, and Dupoy ends up returning to Paris, and then he includes in his article a letter that he receives from Father Lavigneau, who's the Jesuit missionary at McQuestion Post, that he gets New Year's Day in 1908. And, the father's writing to him, wishing him well, the Happy New Year, telling about, like, a recent passing of somebody they knew. And then, at the end of the letter, he informs Dupoy that they saw the monster again, a second time. It was witnessed by the pastor himself and 10 tribe members.
Pastors don't lie. Pastors don't lie.
Not in this day and age. Well, not in the day and age the story takes place. They're considered reliable members of the community, right?
Right,
so,
of course.
It was witnessed by 10 tribe members on Christmas Eve, where they watched it run over the frozen creek, clutching a caribou in its jaws. And
I thought you were going to say 7 fishes.
No. So, the father says that the fur of this creature was noticeably covered in hoarfrost. He writes that it was about -40.
In what?
Hoarfrost, which is
what the fuck is that?
So hoarfrost is
keep saying it. Say it again.
Okay. Well, it's spelled with an HOAR, not the other kind of frost you might but basically what it is it's like when you ever see like a hairy dog go outside in like the snow and like some of the snow like clings to its fur?
Yes.
Right, that's kind of what hoarfrost is.
Gotcha.
Right? And it also
common thing in Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Yes.
So he also estimates that the speed it ran was about 10 miles an hour, which is quite fast for a massive lumbering creature. And it was -49 degrees that day, Fahrenheit, which means that this thing was out in extremely cold temperatures. So the pastor and the party of hunters that are from that tribe, they follow the tracks for 2 miles before they lose them in a blanket of fresh snow. So that's Dupoy's entire article. And when it came out at the time, it was a big sensation because, it was like almost the perfect marriage of scientific articles about dinosaurs and also fictional stories that are like, dinosaurs live among us. You know what I mean?
Sure. Right. The expedition part 2, the adventurousness of the culture at that time, right? Where there's all this land that we've never touched before, right?
Exactly. The lost world, basically.
Yeah, exactly. The lost world. Places that people have been living for generations, but now that people are just like, now that Europeans are essentially coming in and spreading amongst the world, they're like, hey, there's a big sense of adventure, right?
Exactly. So, for some, Dupoy's story is like this incredible account of a sighting of an unknown wild animal. However, for most people, they consider it a total work of fiction. So, most sources that you find for the story online seemingly have like undisputedly decided it's a fictional short story. It's like an early example of science fiction, and it's like one of the earliest examples of like the subgenre of like Wild West dinosaurs being mixed together and stuff like that.
Sure.
Now, this is, of course, despite the fact that Dupoy's work was published in the non-fiction section of J. Seta, right?
Yeah, but like, okay, so what happens after? Does he like stand by it? Does he have like great grandkids that are like?
Unfortunately, his life is tragically cut short because he dies only about like 4 or 5 years later.
Gets killed by a dinosaur.
Well, no, he dies in his
Pterodactyl.
home. Yeah, he dies. He dies of natural causes. He was already kind of old when this story happened. He was like in his 50s when this story takes place. So like he was going into his 60s, 70s. By the time like World War One comes around, like he's passed away. Now, obviously, the idea that Dupoy's story is fictional isn't exactly without merit because, first of all, Dupoy actually wrote a fiction short story for that same magazine in a previous issue that was set during the Klondike Gold Rush. That was about a greedy prospector who goes and murders 2 other prospectors for their claim, but then he's chased away by their sled dogs that like magically protect the claim that the other 2 prospectors had. Also, many of the details of Dupoy's story kind of line up perfectly with like the geography of the area is like spot on. He clearly wrote about an area that he had been to, that he knew very well. You can even like find Partridge Creek on a map and see where it is and see like by the descriptions of what Dupoy was writing that it was obviously an area he knew. However, there's one noticeable detail that doesn't line up at all, is that there is no such thing as the Clayoquot tribe.
What?
Yeah, there is no such thing. Now, this...
They're not even like a subsect of a subsect of
not
a
in the area.
tribe?
Not even remotely in the area. The closest similar sounding name, right, to a tribe lives all the way in like far west Alaska, this is taking place in Yukon, Canada, which is not that far, but if you think about, back then, that's quite a big distance, right?
Yeah, right.
Now, this probably isn't an instance of like some ignorant European colonizer just getting the name wrong of some like local tribe, right? Because Dupoy, as I told you before, he was intimately familiar with many of the tribes of the region. He wrote about them all the time. He
detail-oriented individual, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So it's speculated that maybe Dupoy invented this Clayoquot tribe for his story as like a tell. For most readers at the time, that's something that would like go over their heads as, just another name for one of the many Indian tribes of America. But for his peers who knew him, right, and were well versed on the subject, it would be sort of like a subtle inside joke that, what he was writing about was made up and he was just having a laugh at people's expense. Now, that being said, Dupoy wasn't really known as much of a practical jokester who would be the type of person to have a laugh at people's expense. So, then there's also the issue that, aside from the elephant in the room, that Dupoy's story is an encounter with a living dinosaur tens of million years after the last dinosaur went extinct, right? There's several details of the dinosaur itself that are kind of questionable for anyone with a knowledge of dinosaurs, even at the time the story gets published. So, even in 1908, at the time, it was agreed that dinosaurs were cold-blooded and that they lived in mild-weathered and tropical climate zones. So even in 1908, when the story was published, a famous naturalist who was, what they called, like, scientists that studied...
Charles Darwin.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
A famous naturalist, his name's Richard Lydecker. He's writing for Knowledge and Illustrated Scientific News, wrote about the Dupoy story that I quote, that a living representative of the carnivorous dinosaurs of the secondary epoch should be living in the frozen north of Alaska seems incredible to every scientific mind. The prima facie presumption is that the large dinosaurs were inhabitants of warm rather than of Arctic zones. There's also...
we know that to be untrue, though, now.
Now we do, right? But this is what they thought at the time. This is what... like, everybody was, like, dismissing the crap out of this, right?
Sure.
There's also the fact that the theropod dinosaurs of their time, the theropods are the dinosaurs that, like, are bipedal and sort of walk upright. They were not believed to have any type of hide or fur or anything like that, and that they instead had scales or, like, leathery skin, like an elephant. You know, it was also agreed at the time that these dinosaurs were these slow, lumbering beasts that would drag their tails behind them as they walked upright, you know, like with their arms just like this. And, you know, Like classic.
And if you're just listening to the podcast and not watching,
Yeah.
please go to YouTube and watch it, because Mitch just acted out like a Godzilla type of pose, but he sort of sat up in his chair to do it, and you're really missing out if you're not getting the visual experience. Yeah, right. So not only does it sound far-fetched to us in 2024,
It sounds
but
far-fetched
in
to them back
1908,
then.
1910, right, they're like, this goes against basically everything that they thought about dinosaurs at the time.
Exactly, right? And Dupoy doesn't describe any specifics of how the creature moved, but the idea of like this speedy, bolting, fast-moving big dinosaur just like flying in the face of scientific thought. And at the same time, the track that Dupoy describes sounds like the dinosaur was dragging its tail across the ground anyway, which, it can't be both at the same time. This was what they thought. It was as if Dupoy was like trying to force his imaginary quick-footed dinosaur to also try to confirm as much as possible to like, the notions of the time. And then almost the nail in the coffin, it seemed to be, was the monster heavily resembles what's called a ceratosaurus. It's even referred to it in the story. And that was a very hot and popular dinosaur that was very just recently discovered in the 1890s and was being written about everywhere, right? So for all these reasons, the Monster of Partridge Creek has to be like a hoax. However, in the 1970s, there's a famous paleontologist. His name's Robert Baker. And he proposes a new theory concerning theropod dinosaur locomotion. It's not that they didn't, walk like Godzilla, all upright, like slow and lumbering. It's that they were agile sprinters. They lurched forward, and their big long tails stuck out behind them, and they used them to balance them. Think of like the dinosaurs you've seen in Jurassic Park. Like the way raptors
This
are
is
depicted.
something This is like I believe this more than any other tale you've told.
Yeah. So this radical new theory in the 70s becomes like this driving thing called what's called the dinosaur renaissance of the 1970s, and people are starting to like rethink all these old paleontology notions of dinosaurs, right? Of like how they walked, so now
they're all so different too. Like it's such like a human problem for us to be like dinosaurs. They were all like kind of the same, right?
Exactly.
It's like, no, they don't work like all animals now aren't like kind of the same. And you're talking about like species that existed not only in different time periods, but over millions of years throughout different time periods, right? There are a lot of dinosaurs that we've mentioned that like did not exist even in the same era.
Exactly.
In terms of like Jurassic and Triassic and Cretaceous
and
you know what I mean? Like they didn't cross over, and it was a difference in not only the different dinosaurs, but like because the world was so different, the climate of the world was so different. So like I don't know. There's a big span of what dinosaurs is like too broad of a term, right?
Yes, exactly, right? And and nowadays, so even some things that like were traditionally classified as dinosaurs are not. Like the definition of dinosaur has narrowed as they've started to like understand it more. So like, pterodactyls are associated with dinosaurs, but taxonomically they're not a dinosaur. They're another type of creature, right? Still, nowadays the thought is that just like what you said, these theropod dinosaurs probably had a big variety of ways that they walked and gaits and postures, right? And it probably wasn't mutually exclusive. They would probably switch between different motions and positions depending on what they were doing. They would probably lean forward while they were running using their tails to balance. And then when they were just fucking around, they would probably drag their tails across the ground. They're more relaxed. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So Robert Baker also in the 70s proposed that theropod dinosaurs especially might have actually been warm-blooded. Now, if you don't know the difference, 100%. For people listening, if you don't know the difference between warm-blooded and cold-blooded, basically, warm-blooded creatures are, like us, like human beings or like most mammals that you might encounter, most birds. Basically what it means is we're able to regulate our internal body temperature, through our organs and stuff like that.
Blood flow, right? We can keep our blood warm.
Right. Whereas cold-blooded creatures are a lot of things like reptiles and a lot of amphibians and fish and a lot of invertebrates, which is they have to like gather heat through their environment because their body doesn't excel at retaining it. So they have that's why, there's no snakes in Antarctica, right?
Right. Because they need the warmth. That's why you see all different types of reptiles basking in the sun. It's why fish seek the surface, right? It's all these different things. Yep. Yeah, to keep their blood flow, to keep their metabolism going, all that sort of stuff. Exactly.
So Robert Baker, as part of this new theory, right? This is being pitched in like the 80s now. Basically says that no, these dinosaurs were not probably cold-blooded. They were probably warm-blooded, and he gives a few reasons why. Some of the interesting ones that I read was, number one, every other animal that walks upright is warm-blooded, without exception. Whether it's an ostrich, whether it's a human, whether it's a variety of other things that walk upright that I can't think of right now.
Yeah, most primates.
Yeah, exactly, right? So he also says some dinosaurs, like raptors, which we were talking about earlier, were like very active hunters. And they would need to be warm-blooded in order to have that active kind of lifestyle. Like if you think of like a crocodile that's cold-blooded is like lazy. He just kind of lounges around. He waits for prey to come to him. Raptors are out there. They're like wolves. They're like lion packs.
Hunting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're moving fast. You're spending a lot of energy. You're building a lot of heat. You're probably warm-blooded. And now, most interesting to me was that by the 1980s, Backer notes that it's discovered that some dinosaurs actually did live in northern latitudes, which would not be compatible with them being a cold-blooded animal, because the temperature would be too cold. Now, it's also widely believed that most theropod dinosaurs today that we know of were not scaled, and they didn't have like these leathery, hairless hides, but they were probably covered in coats of short down feathers, which are like the very soft feathers that like maybe birds have, or bristly hair-like feathers that would act as like a layer of protection and also be like an insulator. So, maybe Dupoy's description of a shaggy, hairy, fleet-footed monster is not far from what an Arctic dinosaur would look like if there was an Arctic dinosaur.
Right.
So now flash forward to the year 2024, where we're living in now. We have actually found dinosaur fossils in both the Arctic Circle and the Antarctic Circle, indicating that at one point, dinosaurs did indeed live and seemingly thrive in these cold environments. So the most interesting one I found that I think lines up great with this story is that in 2006, along the North Slope Burrow in Alaska, there's a fossilized skull that's unearthed at a quarry in a place called Prince Creek Formation. And it's an Arctic-dwelling dinosaur. It's believed to be related to Tyrannosaurus. And they named it Nanuqsaurus, which, borrowed from, like, an indigenous group. So it's originally they were like, oh, it must have been, like, a small, tiny creature. But more recent estimates place this thing at being between 25 and 30 feet long from nose to tail. And Nanuqsaurus is believed to not only have lived in, but thrived in cold Arctic landscape of Alaska with other theropods and sauropods. Sauropods are the ones that are on all fours and walk around like Stegosaurus, Brontosaurus. Living in temperatures as low as, at the time, would be like 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And Nanuqsaurus was probably covered in a thick coat of like shaggy feathers. So in a way, Dupoy's seemingly clumsy description of an Arctic dinosaur in the 1900s that didn't line up with paleontology at the time almost like fits perfectly with what we would expect for an Arctic dinosaur in the modern day.
Yeah.
So
there are like giant sloths.
In a way.
Excuse me. Yeah, there's tons of stuff like that. Tons of stuff like that. This guy was telling the truth. I buy it. Maybe it was just the last one. It was the last one left.
Yeah.
The
question then becomes, well, are there other reports from the time from either that part of the world or indigenous populations about something similar. So in 1922, I couldn't find the exact actual written reports of this. I could only find reports mentioning these reports. But
I'm not checking your sources. So.
yeah. In 1922, there's reports from the Soviet Union that make it to America that's saying that there's these ceratosauri-like dinosaurs that are being sighted in the Kamchatka Peninsula, which is, if you don't know your geography, that's that peninsula that's kind of near Siberia. It borders the Pacific Ocean. It's like directly across from Alaska. It's probably the place that Sarah Palin said she could see her house, see from her house.
Yeah, with the Bering Strait. The Bering Strait
Yeah.
goes in between Alaska and Russia, right over there.
Right? And now,
Sarah
there were
Palin.
formal searches to find these dinosaurs, but nothing really came of it. But some people speculate that maybe during extremely cold winters where the Bering Strait would freeze, because it still does from time to time freeze.
Right.
Maybe one of these crossed over into the Yukon, right? Now, also in the 1930s, there's a Canadian journalist and author. His name's Philip H. Godsell, and he's reporting on a story that's told to him by a guy named Frank Beaton of the Hudson Bay Company, which is the big fur trading company up in Canada. So this story, which Frank heard, is the guy telling Philip this story. Frank also got this story secondhand. He claimed to have acquired it from a scientific research party that stopped at Fort St. John in Canada, and they were out there researching flora and fauna or whatever. So according to that research party, there's a half Cree, half Dene native that's being a guide for this party. His name is Chakina, and his job is to guide them all around, show them places, be careful for this, watch out for that, here's where we are geographically. And one night, they're, sitting around their fire, talking about various things, and Chakina starts telling them about lands that are known to the Dene people of northern Canada, that is known as a land of terrifying, large, ferocious monsters. You're not allowed to go there, right? And then after telling the story, he pulls out from his medicine bag a piece of ancestral buckskin that belonged to his father and belonged to his father's father. And on that buckskin, like, engraved into it, burned into it, so a lot of artistic work went into it, is the image of one of these monsters that's there. And according to Frank Beaton, who's telling the story, the research member that told him the story said that there was absolutely no mistaking what was on that buckskin. It was a dinosaur. And it wasn't like a shitty sketch of a dinosaur. It was like drawn in meticulous detail. It looked very anatomically correct, So it definitely raises some questions. Now, do I believe that, a large living dinosaur is walking among us today? I don't think so. I think it's so much distance between the last one was alive that we know of and now that it's like almost impossible. However, I would like to bring up very quickly the story of the coelacanth, which is a prehistoric fish. It's like the poster boy of cryptozoology alongside Bigfoot, because it was it's a prehistoric fish. We have it in the fossil record. It lived, like alongside the dinosaurs, living in the deep sea. We thought it went extinct, doesn't exist anymore. Then all of a sudden, in like the 1930s, some fishers in Africa start catching it in their nets, and lo and behold, here's this 200 million year old fish that is actually still alive and well. So I guess you never really know what is possible.
Yeah, I think calling this type of beast a dinosaur is doing it a disservice. I think it is, people hear dinosaur, they think raptor, they think T-Rex. They're not necessarily thinking about like Gigantopithecus type beings or giant sloths, or basically like bigger versions of mammals that we know today. And so, mix that with the fact that like these are very, very remote areas, and the type of searching that is involved, 100 years ago is very different than like the type of like scanning geographically that we can do, in today's day and age. So I like to think that there's a possibility that there was like a lone pack out left for a lot, but it really depends on what you're talking about. Because like you said, if it's a species that only existed hundreds of millions of years ago, then it becomes more far-fetched. But yeah, I think there's I think the ocean, because it's so much more unexplored, leaves itself to more mystery.
I would agree.
But I don't know, that like Siberian, Yukon, northern Canada,
one of the most remote
like a very
places,
vast,
even to
super
this day.
remote. Things don't exist there. Things don't thrive there. So not a lot of people go there, So it is. It's mysterious, and I think it's interesting, and I like the idea of it.
Yeah. To me, I think the most interesting part of this story is the fact that like so much of this seems to align itself very well with what we know about dinosaurs now, right?
Yeah.
Right. Which is like, to get, looking back in 1908, for him to guess about like how paleontology was going to evolve to support this for his short story,
right. 70 years later.
That's
big.
It's one hell of a guess, right? Now, that's not saying it couldn't have been the norm. It couldn't have been the luckiest guess of all time. Maybe it was.
Right.
But still, it's so strange to me that, and that's why I love telling this story, because it like, it raises some eyebrows, and then all of a sudden the script gets flipped, and it's like, well, hold on, wait a minute here. He's talking about things in 1908 that we know now, but we didn't know back then,
Right.
It's very fascinating.
So it leads itself to more truth.
Yeah.
And maybe he was just exaggerating a bit. Maybe it wasn't 50 feet long, but it was 30 feet long, and maybe he didn't try to climb for 10 minutes, tried to climb for 2 minutes. You know what I mean? And like, so he is exaggerating a bit here and there, and
because he was writing for an audience, So he was, he's trying to make it exciting, right?
Yeah, and nonfiction or fiction, he still wants it to be entertaining.
Exactly.
And so yeah, I don't know, super interesting. Yeah, let's hope there's still Gigantopithecus out there, and maybe that's just what Bigfoot is. Bigfoot's just like, part dinosaur.
Yeah, well, you never know, right?
It all comes back to Bigfoot always.
Yeah. So speaking of Bigfoot, let me show off for those who can't see at home. But for those who can see, I want to show off my new shirt.
Oh, wow. This is great. Have you seen me? Milk missing on the side of Bigfoot, and we got the Patterson on the bottom.
Yeah.
The silhouette.
With like his stats, he's like 10 feet
10 foot
tall.
1, 800 pounds, brown fur, brown eyes. Classic.
Yeah. I got it for the holiday season.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So now, since we're on the subject of dinosaurs and we've been talking about dinosaurs, I understand that we might have a fun related snack for us to try today. So
yeah, I like how you're like, Mitch doesn't want anyone to peek behind the curtain. Like, I understand that there might be there's a dinosaur themed snack. There were a lot of things for us to choose from. We're gonna take a quick break, and we're gonna come back, and we're gonna have a dinosaur themed snack that its origins also date back to the early 20th century.
Oh, so, really? Interesting.
Yes, that is true. Okay, we'll be right back.
All right, cool.
Okay, we are back with Cryptid Nuggets. John Stenning, Mitch DeAngelis. We were talking about dinosaurs earlier, and now we're going to eat on some dinosaurs. We have Haribo dinosaurs. That's the simple name, Haribo dinosaurs. Before the break, I alluded to the fact that these are also it's steeped in origins in the early 20th century. Haribo is a German confectionery company, and they were founded in 1920.
Oh, wow.
The first gummy candy that they produced were in 1922, and those are the famous bears.
Yes.
The Goldie Bears, as they are now known within the Haribo brand. The person, here's a little fun fact, the person that started Haribo, Hans Riegel Bahn, that's Ha-Ri-Bo for his 3 names.
Oh, kind of like Nairo P.
exactly like Nairobi, which is, if you're not listening in the southern New England area, Cardi's is a local furniture chain. That the name is Cardi's, which is their last name. Their names are Nick, Ron, and Pete.
Yeah.
And they had ads, and they still do have ads, even though one of them is no longer with us. Rest in peace. But it's weird because, like, if from what I recall, this is a real deep dive into local Southern New England lore, but I absolutely love this. So Cardi's is the chain, Nairobi for the three brothers, Nick, Ron, and Pete. There were a lot of ads back in the day. I don't think there are as many commercials on TV as there used to be. Maybe I just don't consume them because I don't watch that much cable television. But this was after the craze of the Budweiser commercial that was Budweiser. And there was a Nairobi commercial that was Nairobi.
Oh,
and
they were having a laugh at it.
They've always gotten off on parodies. Like, they've done South Park parodies where they're Kyle, Cartman, and Stan, and somehow not Kenny because there's only 3 of them and there's 4 South Park. It's like
Kenny died, dude.
It's very half-assed. It's very half-assed, and now most recently, and this is going to get a little bit dark, they had a Halloween billboard, and it's just 2 of them now instead of the 3, and they were like dressed in Halloween costumes. They should have put the 3rd one as a ghost. And they did not do that. That's a missed opportunity. Yeah. Whichever one is dead, Nick, Ron, or Pete, I don't know. I'm sorry. Yeah. One of them lost a lot of weight, one of them passed away, and one of them just exists still.
Yeah, he's still the same.
He's still the same. But more importantly, Haribo.
Yeah.
They made their international expansion in 1960 and American distribution in the 1980s. So very much around the same time that we were realizing that dinosaurs might be warm-blooded.
Oh, interesting.
And now, to this day, in 2024, actually, I think this stat is a little bit dated. There are over 100 million bears produced a day. 100 million a day are made.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and okay, so let's talk about gummy in the abstract for a little bit. Do you like? Wow, I bang in the mic a lot. Yeah. Do you like gummy candy, Mitch?
I am quite a fan of gummy candy. I try not to eat it that often because for a variety of reasons, but mostly because this might shock you, but I have a lot of fillings, right? And some chewier gummy candies or like taffies and things like that can sometimes, if your filling is a little loose or whatever, pull it right out. Right?
Oh, gotcha. Right? I like gummy myself. I wouldn't say that I do like. I like gummy bears.
Yeah.
I have more favorite gummy. Like, I'd rather have a licorice. I'd rather have like a Twizzler. I am a big fan of like a Red Vine. Then I think of like fruit snacks. Like the sharp fruit snacks from when we were kids. Those were so good.
I still eat those.
Any other gummy? Yeah, do they still make those with the white shark? The white shark that's a little bit different and like it's like rare. You know what I mean?
I don't think they still make those, but I know like Welch's makes like a lot of fruit snacks that I eat all the time and stuff like that.
Welch's fruit snacks are great. Actually, now that I think about it, I kind of wish that the cafeteria at work
still had. They used to have them at one point.
I love those.
You know what they also used to have? They used to have the organic gummy bears, but they don't have those anymore either.
Yeah, so we'll get to the organic gummy bears.
Yeah,
because I have a lot of opinions about. Gummy bears, but let's talk about the dinosaurs really quick.
Sure.
Obviously, like a very cute thing here. I did open them. I had one earlier. Mitch, you can open yours. Here's how they promote these. Your favorite Haribo dinosaurs are here, and they're roaring with sweetness. Each bag contains 65 million years of scrumptious gummy flavors like strawberry, mango, banana, melon, and black currant. So those are the flavors that we're dealing with. It looks to me on the back that we have 3 different dinosaurs, and it's actually banana and strawberry is a combination. Mango, mandarin, and melon is another combination, and black currant and strawberry. So 2 of these flavor combinations have strawberry in them.
Yeah. Interesting. Right. Well, it looks like there are a
lot.
bunch of different shapes, actually.
Mine are all freaking stuck together like
Oh, jeez. Yeah,
like a
mine are
rat's
not
nest.
nearly as bad as that.
Okay, so we bought these on Amazon.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to just pull one of each color.
So like it looks like here we got like a Stegosaurus.
Yep.
You know, and then it looks like here we got maybe like a Triceratops or like
I definitely have a Triceratops. Yep, for sure.
Right.
And a Brontosaurus or an Allosaurus.
This is like a Brontosaurus for me.
Right. I think it's just that. I think it's just the three.
Oh no. Look. Here's like a T-Rex or like a Ceratosaurus.
Oh, okay. I see a T-Rex here.
Right.
Yep.
And interesting to note is it's like the very old school, outdated idea of like they stood straight up like Godzilla, right, dragging its tail, right, which was what we were talking about the story. This is great. This ties in really, really well to what we were talking about.
Yeah, it's perfect. All right, which one do you want to try first? Which flavor combo you got?
Ooh, okay. So, what exactly is black currant? Is that like blackberry-ish?
Yeah, blackberry-ish, raspberry-ish. Is that what you have first? The red and blue and black currant and strawberry?
That. I think I want to try one of these first.
All right, let's do it. You go ahead. You can try first. I'm looking at it. It's kind of nice and translucent. I'm holding up to the light. You can see through it. Mine is the Brontosaurus shape here. Wow, very nice. Yeah, pretty chewy. It looks like you're chewing.
Chewy. It's very chewy. Mine's actually a little tough. Like it's hard to like separate it with my teeth, you know?
So here's the problem. Haribo is too tough. Now, you talked about how you had them outside, right? They got delivered late. It's New England winter we're living in. It's been really cold lately.
Yeah.
So they were cold outside. Mine have been inside for 36 hours.
Yeah.
They're still hard as hell.
Oh, my goodness.
I think, listen, this is too dense of a gummy. The bears, it's a little bit easier to get around because they're a lot smaller.
Yeah.
I eat a good amount of gummy bears when I ride my bike. It's just like an easy sugar to ride. My friends buy them. I have this friend who constantly has them in his side pocket in his tights, and he pulls them out and like hands them to you while you're riding. It's adorable.
That's fun.
It's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun out there. This is too dense and it's way too chewy. I think Haribo kind of sucks.
Oh, wow. That's quite the hot take.
I think Haribo kind of sucks. And in my notes here, I have Haribo has jumped the shark. They've become a master of none. There are way too many varieties. There's the regular gold bears. There's the sour gold bears. There's the gummies. The flavor isn't bad.
Yeah.
The chew is off. There's just way too many. You could, if they had stuck and they honed in with the bears, but they're a master of none.
Now,
what do you think?
Well, first of all, I agree with you about the toughness for sure.
I'm struggling to chew this. I am struggling.
I would agree about the toughness for sure. However, I also wanted to ask, just to clarify for my own memory, does Haribo, do they make also like the gummy frogs and the gummy sharks and stuff like that, or is that a different company?
So they do make. I think the frogs are theirs, and I'm not sure if the sharks are theirs. The frogs are pretty good.
The frogs are my favorite out of all the gummy snacks. Anytime I see them, I buy them. Like,
they're also thinner though. These are thick.
They are. Yeah.
These are too thick.
Because I was gonna say the frogs have they're like nice and tender compared to these. This is like biting into a piece of leather.
And that's what I want to say about the organic gummy bears that we used to be able to get at work. Or and I think it's the same brand that we used to have there, but they're called Albanese bears, and they're so good. They're soft. They have good flavors. They're way less preservatives than these. These are like, there's nothing about this is like good for you. I mean, I didn't think this was going to be a health food. Yeah. You know what I mean? I wasn't thinking it's going to be a health food, but it's not even easy to eat. Like, I'm going to save the rest of these and like bring them on my bike ride so I can eat them. And they're going to be like a pain in the ass. But I'm not going to throw them out because that's just wasteful. And I also don't think I should just like eat the whole bag while sitting on the couch tonight. You know, that also seems like a bad idea, even though I very well might do that. I'm not above doing that.
Oh, for sure.
Let's try. So strawberry, blackcurrant and strawberry, not bad flavors. I'm not a big strawberry fan. I'm not a big artificial strawberry fan, regular strawberry fan. So
I would say that strawberry is a weak flavor for me artificially. The only thing I think I like less than strawberry is like artificial cherry flavor. which I'm not a big fan of.
I don't mind artificial
candy.
cherry. I'm not
with candy specifically.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So there's also the banana strawberry, which I have here. I'm gonna give that one a whirl.
Banana strawberry. That's the red and yellow one.
Half yellow, half red.
Yeah. Here's my brontosaurus right here.
Very nice. I had a stegosaurus. I'm getting a little bit of banana.
Oh, I can actually definitely taste the banana.
Artificial banana tastes nothing like regular banana. Do you know why?
Not at all. Artificial banana is a flavor that has grown on me immensely over the years. As a kid, I hated it. Like when you would get
runts.
Runts, exactly, with like the banana shaped runts. I was trying to think of the name.
Yes.
Like I hated those as a kid, but now I'm like, dude, sign me up. Same thing with like banana taffy. Like when you would get like the Wonka Laffy Taffy stuff, the banana ones were my least favorite. Now, dude, it's delicious. I don't know what happened. It's like you hit like a certain age, and then like stuff that as a kid you were like, this sucks. You're just like, man, this is good.
Yeah,
it's
artificial
like the Brussels
banana
sprouts of like candy flavors.
Yeah, you're right. Apparently, artificial banana is based on a banana varietal that is no longer with us, a banana varietal that is extinct, much like most dinosaurs.
Oh, really?
And that's where that derivative comes from, a banana that we're not familiar with, like in today's day. Not like the typical Dole banana that you get, which is like a totally genetically modified thing, That's why that banana tastes so different. Yeah, not bad. I think that one was a little bit better than the black currant. And we got one more, mango and melon. That's half green, half yellow.
Yep, that's this one. Here's my little triceratops. I also got a stegosaurus.
Nice. I've got a triceratops here as well. Yeah, I don't know. Haribo, these are just too damn chewy. They're too chewy. It's like a chore.
Yeah.
Like, this is like a chore. I don't love them.
I will say I like the flavor of this mango and melon one the most, I would say. Although
yeah, me too.
I would say that's probably because one of my favorite candy flavors is like watermelon. You know what I mean? And this has a very distinct, almost watermelon type taste to it. Yeah,
it does.
Well, like
not really that pleasant. It's just not fun to eat.
No,
I'd rather have a million other gummies before having that. Do you remember the price point on these bags? They were like $5, $5.60 or something. Yeah,
oh yeah,
that's what we paid for them.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously we're not like making money off the podcast, so that's another consideration. Like, would you spend $5 to?
If I saw these in a store, right? Picture this: I'm in, local convenience store. Whether it's big box chain like CVS or whether it's like, local thing down the street or whatever, I'm walking in the candy aisle. I get to the gummies.
Is that your first stop? Are you going sweet before you go savory in a place like that?
Oh yeah. I usually hit up the candy aisle for because I'm a big fan of like sweeter candies or tart sort of candies, especially harder candies too. Like I love Smarties, the American Smarties, not the Canadian kind. I love Smarties. I love Sweet Tarts. I love Sprees. I love.
Those are good. All good.
Right. I love Nerds.
Love Nerds. Nerd clusters, dude.
Oh, dude.
Man.
Speaking of gummies, not to get super off topic, but like the Nerd ropes with that are the Nerds attached to like the gummy rope. I love them. Oh my god, so good. Yeah.
So that's what nerd cluster is, just those, but cut up into little bits, and they're the
best
they're
like bite size. Oh,
yeah, they're bite-sized nerd ropes.
I've
nerd
never
clusters.
Seen those.
They're so freaking good. Another snack that someone handed to me on a bike ride. They were like, "You want some Nerds clusters?" I was like, "Yeah, of course." And they were so freaking good, so good, chewy, not overly chewy like these. These are a bummer. These are a real bummer. Haribo has jumped the shark. I'm sorry. I like the bears just fine, but these are they're phoning it in.
Yeah.
They're doing a million different flavors. They're doing a million different varietals, and it's just not doing it for me.
So, if I go into that candy aisle and I'm looking at the gummies, first of all, I'm on the hunt for the gummy frogs. Like, that's the given, right? If I can't find the gummy frogs, then we got to get something else. If I saw these on the shelf after having had them now on the podcast,
Yeah.
I wouldn't bother.
No, I'd rather
I
give
just
me a
flat out
sour
wouldn't bother.
give me Sour Patch watermelon any day. Give me another Sour Patch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Any other gummy.
All right. So what about? Yeah. Yeah. So I mean we're not paying the import tax on these, right?
No.
I don't
Not
even
at
know
all.
if I'm buying them. I don't even think I'm going to buy them again.
Probably not. No.
I would never revisit these.
Unless, 10 years from now, my memory has failed and I'm like, oh, gummy dinosaurs. I haven't had these in 10 years.
Right. I would have to fail myself.
Yeah.
And go back and try these. But yeah, not great. Not nearly as great as your story about this dinosaur that was roaming the early 1900s in the Yukon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. And now I have a terrible aftertaste in my mouth.
Yeah, they do kind of leave like a...
It's like batteries.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's like batteries, but it's definitely like prevalent. You know what I mean? It's like...
Yeah, it doesn't go away. I think I had a sip of water. It hasn't gone away.
Yeah, it's almost like it lingers on the back of your tongue. You know?
Yes, it's on the back of my tongue and like around the back of my rear teeth, my molars, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not good.
Yeah,
it's not good.
I'm not sold. I'm not sold on these. I mean,
yeah,
step
it up, Haribo. Step up your game.
Yeah, more delicious gummy frogs.
Yes,
sure. Thinner gummies, more delicious, organic gummy beers. Less of this plastic shit.
I'm more of a chocolate peanut butter person anyway. I'm going for a Reese's. I'm going for any Reese's varietal before I'm going for these. And I'm even going for Albanese bears before I go for Haribo. They're just kind of a bummer. They're a little bit too chewy, a little bit too processed. I mean, obviously they're going to be processed. I'm not above processed foods.
Yeah.
I think both of us equally love bad things. But you need to know that they're bad for you, and these just aren't worth the badness. I don't think.
So, first of all, I feel like when I eat these, I feel like this is how, when I was a little boy, I had a dog, right, who would chew on my toys. This must have been what he felt chewing on my dinosaur toys. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Right? But
it's laborious.
I would like to propose that, because we have two different ranking systems that we use, right? We use the will we pay the import tax? Will we fly to the motherland, right? But then we also have our traditional tier list, right? Which is S tier at the highest, A, B, C, D going lower and lower and lower. I would like to propose that we institute a tier on the tier list, H tier for Haribo, where things that we just would not eat again go in H tier.
Haribo, more like horrible.
Perfect.
Yes. I think just as bad as my forced pun was, these are so much worse. And, these are H tier for sure. Sorry, Haribo. My sugar levels are up, and as you can tell by my high energy that I'm coming at you with right now, and my bullshit levels for Haribo are also up. But I don't know that. Sorry, Haribo. You sort of ended you ruined the episode for me. You not ruined the episode, but ended us on a down note for sure. Fucking Haribo.
Yeah. It was so.
We do have next episode planned, so that's good. Sorry, I don't mean to.
I was just gonna, untraditional for me, give people a peek behind the curtain. I was gonna say we searched for tons of different dinosaur snack options, right?
Yeah, we wanted to buy Reptar bars. We talked about Reptar bars a lot, and I still wish we had, but they're so expensive.
Yeah, dude, it was over $50 for a single bar, right? Because they're out of print.
It was wild.
Yeah,
they're out of print. Their shipping is not cheap, and people like them because nostalgia is
exactly. Right?
Yeah.
And then, you got, we also tried looking for different chocolate dinosaurs and stuff like that. And there was a whole thing of this place has this, but they don't ship. This place charges $20 for a single chocolate egg. We were trying to find maybe a blind box thing with some different fun shapes, like what we ended up getting here. But, we couldn't find one. So it was like,
I thought, Haribo will be fun. Haribo's a good standard. It's a good brand to talk about. They have a history. Well, guess what? You're flushing your history down the drain.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say the history itself did line up actually nicer than I thought it would with the actual story, right?
Yeah.
But like
it's all part of the experiment, you know.
Yeah.
It's all part of the social experiment that is this podcast.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. Sorry, Haribo. I'm not sorry. I really don't care.
Yeah. Listen, man, even the Partridge Creek monster wouldn't eat this shit.
There you go. Thank you, Mitch. All right, we'll see on the. You got anything else you want to say before we get out of here? I think I'm feeling good about the next episode. How can we tease the next episode? Can we tease it at all?
Oh, well, I guess you could say that we're going to be going, down south in the United States once again.
Yes.
And instead of looking at, so far we've done terrestrial cryptids, right?
Yes.
Maybe this time what we're going to be talking about is something not so terrestrial.
Post-terrestrial. Is that the phrase?
Well, I don't want to say the actual phrase because it'll give it away. So
okay,
we're just going to tease it.
We'll just keep everyone guessing.
Exactly.
Yeah, and a little snack south of the border as well, but not south of the American border. Just
no.
South of the Mason-Dixon.
Yeah,
towards the southern border.
Yeah,
but not old Mexico.
No. ...
Okay, thanks, Mitch. Thank you all for listening, for watching. It helps if you subscribe on YouTube and like the video. And
for sure,
or if you're just listening, that's all good stuff too. And thank you once again for being part of the Beastie Boys Paranormal Adventures. We got to maybe someday we'll find those other two Beastie Boys. And
I don't know, man. I'm just saying. At this point, I've seen more evidence that Bigfoot exists than Mike Holmes exists.
Yes, and I've been more sufficiently creeped out by the actual Anthony Jarvis than I have of any meme on Reddit in the past 9 months. So, okay, thank you, thanks, Mitch, thanks everyone that watched and listened, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
See ya.
Decaf left, regular right. Decaf left, regular right. Very challenging work.